He had made fire. Weary with exertion, Mufasa settled back on his haunches and watched the leaping flame. Fire. His arms and back ached unmercifully. The wound on his leg throbbed, but the warm glow of the flame comforted him. It made him think of home, of food and warmth and companionship, of faces around the evening circle, of the drone of old men's voices telling their endless tales of daring, and he was swept by a sudden wave of loneliness, a longing for the sound of his father's deep voice. He shut his lips tight and fought it back, then leaped to his feet and set about his small task with great show of busyness. He would not think of those things. He would not remember, if he could help it. He would have cooked food, warmth when he was wet through, and the finest implement on which to set about building a canoe. Tomorrow he would fall a tree by fire and start to work upon his dugout. He would make fire only by day, and then not too large a blaze, for its glow might be visible to the distant islands of the eaters of men. Thus he forced his thoughts into safer channels. He threw breadfruit into the fire. Then it would stay until it was charred black, thoroughly cooked. Next he laid half a dozen fairy wild bananas in the coals, covering them with wet leaves so that slowly they would steam through. While his dinner was cooking, he had yet another task to do. He set about at once. He tore off a half a dozen fronds of low-growing coconut trees with their branches. Then he began to plait them into a flat, mat-like screen. These, made into a lean-to, would be his shelter against the wind and the storm. Several layers of them would be watertight. If only I had my knife, Yuri, the boy groaned. How simple it would be. I must search the lagoon for a parua shell. It grinds down to a fine cutting edge. We'll soon have a good knife. Yuri thought so too. That was the evidence from the motion of his tireless tail. Perhaps, Mufasa thought suddenly, I might find a knife in the sacred place of the eaters of men. Then he shook his head. No, I shall never return to that terrible Maui Tuba. But each day he resolved he would climb to the high plateau, his lookout, to the southwest. Someday the eaters of men would come back. Before long, perhaps. Mufasa was certain of it, as he was certain that the sun shone and was warm. It was inevitable. That means it was for sure going to happen. And when the black men came, he would have to leave or die. The boy looked fondly on the tamu tree that he had marked already for his canoe. Tomorrow I shall start work upon it, he promised, and what a canoe I shall build, deep and strong, but light, an outrigger as swift and powerful as a shark's tail. And when my father sees it, he will say, my son, but they built fine canoes in the island that you have come from. And then I will say, but I built it myself, my father. And then he will say, it is possible. Is it possible, this fine canoe? The fire blazed brightly, and the breadfruit gave forth a tempting odor. Jets of vapor rose from the steaming bananas. Yuri snuggled down at his master's side, and Mufasa hugged the dog close. There's food for you too, my brother, he cried. And tomorrow we shall have fish. See my spear? How bravely it flashes. I will make a new shaft for it, and then I shall kill a mau, a shark, and a wild pig too. Yuri, you will see. Boy, this is a guy that's afraid of everything. Now he's talking about killing sharks and pigs. The boy pulled the breadfruit from the fire and broke it in half. Its white, flaky meat was packed with sustenance, a little like bread in taste, a trifle like a potato, better than either. The boy gave half of it to Yuri. The dog circled around, sniffing, longing, as he waited for his dinner to cool. The bananas popped from their skins while their juices bubbled in the heat. Deftly, Mufasa slid them out of the fire, transferred them to a broad leaf that served as a plate. Then, unminded of the burned fingers, he fell upon the hot food. He was famished. It seemed that he had never been so hungry his whole life, and for a time there was only the sound of his greedy munching. Never had food tasted so good. He ate and ate until his stomach could hold no more. Then a great weariness stole through his limbs. With a sigh of deep content, he sank back upon the cool sand and closed his eyes. Yuri snuggled close, warm and friendly against his side. Overhead, the plaited fronds of the palm tree formed a snug shelter. Someday, the boy thought drowsily, I will make my roof watertight. But not yet. So he has to put layers and layers and layers of these big leaves up there to make it watertight, but it's not there yet. The tide was running out of the lagoon with the sunset in the wisping hum of sound like the reassuring hush of the mother of her child. Mufasa lay there under his lean-to, relaxed in every nerve. He had fire, food, shelter. He had faced Moana, the sea god. He had dared the sacred Mara of the eaters of men to win a spear. There was a newfound confidence seen in his heart. He had found a new belief in himself. At peace with himself and the world, he slept. We'll pick up, drums next time.